Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the frickin' Kool-Aid. You've probably heard the official Jonestown story, the sanitized PBS version of what really happened. The version where it kind of said 918 people just lined up and said, I'm ready to go. This version is easy, comfortable, and completely wrong. I was one of those people that really didn't look into this, just kind of thought exactly what they wanted us to believe. Now I'm gonna go over my version, what I have gathered with doing my own research. The one that uses all the evidence, not the version that just sounds good. The contraindications, the FBI files, the autopsies, the CIA footprints, the survivor accounts, the medical logs, the death tape, all the stuff that the documentaries just skip because they don't want angry emails. They don't want the 3-letter agencies knocking on their door like, what the I'm not following the version that everybody's memorized. I'm following the version that makes sense. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jim Jones grew up as that kid. The one who memorized Bible verses, held funerals for dead animals, and preached to imaginary crowds. He wasn't religious, you guys. He was obsessed with control. And control becomes so easy. Second nature when you know how to make people feel seen. He built the People's Temple's trust on 5 things: community, equality, social justice, and the energy of, I will be the only one who will protect you. Sounds stupid, but people are very easily manipulated. And shockingly, as you guys have seen in history, he delivered. He fed people, he housed people, he defended people, he integrated people. He was a progressive hero until he wasn't. Because quite frankly, helping people wasn't his point. That's not why he was doing this. It was for strictly control. The moment that he knew he had everybody's trust, he tightened them screws. He dug his nails in deep, baby. He staged healings with chicken livers. He weaponized confessions. He forced loyalty. He claimed to have visions, as most of these cult leaders tend to do. He demanded to be called father, which we all know is a precursor for frickin' chaos. There's nothing good that ever comes from calling somebody father. I mean, unless they're God themselves, but that's besides the point. You could literally see this mess coming from outer space. Recipe for disaster. As Jim Jones got more power, he got more paranoid, as one does. A combination that science has proven happens when you mix narcissism with amphetamines. Jim Jones was not shy to drugs, and he used drugs a lot. So journalists began digging. They found abuse, sleep torture, beatings, sexual exploitation, financial fraud, kidnapping disguised as custody transfers, and last but not least, forced loyalty rituals. So Jones did what every unstable leader inevitably does. He ran and took everybody with him. Destination? Guyana. The one place far enough from the US that we just can't touch. He promised utopia, paradise, a socialist Eden. It sounds incredible on paper, you guys. If you are weak, if you are wanting an escape, this was your guy. People followed because I guess the American dream just wasn't working for them. It just wasn't what they wanted. And that's exactly how the traps closed without anybody noticing. They left the country and it's like they never existed. Unfortunately, when they arrived, they're in Guyana, okay? It's not really a paradise. These people, they were met with heat, insects, mud, thin soap, endless labor, crowded cabins, and Jim Jones on loudspeakers 24 hours a day. Nothing says utopia like a man on drugs yelling at you on a loudspeaker at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sounds incredible. Jones controlled literally everything. Food, work, marriages, children. Who could have intercourse? Money, sleep, and communication. Everything went through Jim Jones. Everything. He staged white nights, fake suicide drills to test loyalty. Kind of like how the government does, but no, let's not go there yet. Guards with guns patrolled the perimeter. Everybody's passport was confiscated. Punishments kept escalating more and more. Anybody who started to question him were promptly followed by being drugged. Jonestown was not a commune. It was not what it was supposed to be, not even a little bit. It was an open-air behavioral experiment, and the subjects were absolutely exhausted. Now let's move on to somebody who came to check up on the camp. Congressman Leo Ryan heard rumors and said the final famous words of every horror protagonist. I'll check it out myself. He flew to Guyana with reporters and family members. At first, Jonestown put on a Broadway performance. It was all show. Children singing, smiling workers, Jones playing humble leader like he rehearsed it. But then a temple member slipped a note to an NBC cameraman. It read, "Please help us get out." And that was it. The illusion has been cracked. People begged Ryan to take them home. So, as any leader does, Jones started panicking. The guards panicked harder. At the airstrip, Jones sent gunmen, and they were successful. They killed Leo Ryan, 3 journalists, and a temple defector. This was when the match got lit. This is when everything turned to terror. Jones gathered everyone in the pavilion. What happens next is recorded on the Jonestown death tape. Now, this is where most documentaries look away. They don't want you knowing any of this. Or they just don't want to look crazy, but I have no problem doing that, so here we are. I'm not looking away. On the tape you hear children crying, parents panicking, Jones bulldozing over terrified voices, guards blocking exits, people screaming, and then the chaos turned into silence.
I tell you, I don't care how many screams you hear, I don't care how many anguished cries. Death is a million times preferable to 10 more days of this life. If you knew what was ahead of you, you'd be glad to be stepping over tonight. If you'll quit telling them they're dying, if you adults will stop some of this nonsense, adults, I call on you to stop this nonsense. I call on you to quit exciting your children when all they're doing is going to quiet rest. I call on you to stop this now. If you have any respect at all, are we black, proud, and socialist, or what are we? Now stop this nonsense. Don't carry this on anymore. You're exciting your children. No sorrow that it's all over. I'm glad it's over. Hurry, my children, hurry. All I say does not fall into the hands of the enemy. Hurry, my children. Hurry. The seniors out here that I'm concerned about. Hurry. I don't want to leave my seniors to this mess. Quickly. The sisters. Been knowing you. No more pain, Al. No more pain, I said, Al. No more pain.
He called it a revolutionary suicide, but you can clearly hear people trying to live. Now, viewer discretion is strongly advised for the description I'm going to go into. I warned you. Infants were poisoned first. Syringes with cyanide was squirted into their mouths. Then toddlers, then older kids, then adults. Some were forced, some were injected, some drank the Kool-Aid because they had a gun to their head. Nobody was choosing anything. This was a mass execution. That's all there is to it. 918 dead, 304 of them were children. And Jim Jones, he didn't drink the Kool-Aid. He shot himself in the head, naturally. Loser can't even do the suicide he planned. A few survived, thank God. A handful ran into the jungle. A woman who just slept through it. kids that were sent for errands, and people who hid under their cabins. Here's some survivor recounts.
Jones's men tried to knife the congressman.
I stood up and had been talking with the two attorneys for the temple, and suddenly it was around my neck.
You're convinced he was trying to kill you. Where was the knife?
In his very large left hand.
They got as far as the landing strip and were ambushed.
This tractor trailer had driven onto the airstrip. Gunmen from the People's Temple jumped off and started shooting. I at first didn't even know that it was gunshot, was what I was hearing. And then as I turned around, Congressman Ryan had been hit. And as I was running towards him, got hit again and fell.
The congressman and 4 others were killed, including NBC correspondent Don Harris and cameraman Bob Brown. Audio technician Steve Sung was wounded but survived.
When did you realize you were shot? Well, I was lying on the airstrip with my head down, pretending I was dead. And I just kept hearing the shots ring out. And then all of a sudden, the right side of my body was blown up. I mean, I had a bone coming out of my right arm. There was a hole in my thigh the size of a football.
For nearly 24 hours, she prayed, hoping to be rescued. Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones gave a faithful order.
I shudder when people say it was a suicide. They weren't willingly taking their lives. That was a mass murder.
They died from Kool-Aid laced with cyanide, including 300 children. Those who refused were forced or injected with poison.
They all say the same thing. It wasn't suicide. It was murder. They describe seeing people being injected, hearing guards forcing people. They heard people collapsing. They heard the children screaming. They heard mothers fighting guards. Most people thought the jungle was safer than whatever the hell was going on here. And the people who did that were right. Survival in this wasn't a plan. There was a reason he put this in the middle of the jungle. You're lucky if you got out, if I didn't get you first. All right, so now we're going to get into some MK Ultra, you guys. It always turns to something with the freaking alphabet people. This is the part that makes the academics nervous. The part that nobody likes to cover because, I don't want to be in hot water, but I don't give a MK Ultra was real. I've covered it on quite a few of my videos, but this is different. Now here is a CIA reading room collection. So this is just a little rundown of MK Ultra in case you know nothing about it. So sorry if you have. It's just really quick. The CIA experimented on civilians for decades using LSD, barbiturates, sleep torture, sensory deprivation, shock therapy, identity erosion, obedience conditioning, and force injections. They even did it on their own people, so ain't nobody safe, okay? Now compare this to Jonestown. What happened at Jonestown, you guys? I briefly covered it. Sleep deprivation? Check. Obedience drills? Check. Forced drugging? Check. Surveillance? Yep. Isolation? Yep. Medical staff behaving like research staff? Check it again. So now the Dan Matreon connection. I may be butchering that name, okay? I'm sorry if I am. Jones worked with this man, Dan Matreon, which this man is tied to CIA torture. Jones called this man a mentor. I don't know about you, but I've met 0 people in the FBI, let alone have them be my mentor. This is not comforting information. So here's also a little weird tidbit. There was autopsy anomalies. Many bodies showed injection marks, high sedative levels, wounds inconsistent with oral poisoning. These aren't Reddit theories. These are US medical reports. Another little fun side note. There was a CIA station nearby. What are the mother effing odds? This is a fact. This is not some made up bullshit theory. This is a fact. Did they monitor Jonestown? Almost certainly, but of course, the public will never know. Did they intervene? Absolutely not. Were the files complete? No. MK Ultra destroyed most of its files in 1973. So this was 5 years before Jonestown. Coincidence? I don't know. Pick your flavor. People don't just join cults. They know the stigma behind them. They join community. They join belonging. They join protection. They join a place that says, you matter here. We love you here. But unfortunately, in Jonestown, the walls started closing in. This paradise turned into isolation, exhaustion, fear, loyalty pressure, threats, punishment, and again, like I said, sleep deprivation. And at a certain point, your brain just stops resisting. You're too tired to fight. And that's when control is complete. Jonestown wasn't stupidity. It was finding people's weaknesses and monopolizing on it. So when it comes to the aftermath of all of this, it still cannot be explained. After the massacre, the government collected the following: diaries, audio tapes, logs, letters, medical notes, photos, and coded messages. Some were archived, some were sealed, and some just literally vanished. Because the government is just so good at keeping track of things that are really important. So here are the questions that never got answered. Why the injection deaths? Why the massive drug supply? Why the missing radio logs? Why the weak embassy response? What's with the CIA proximity? Why is the timeline inconsistent? Why was Jones' body the only shot wound? Every answer spawns two new holes, two new unanswered questions. So as I mentioned before, there was a lot of children, 304 to be exact, and this section is for them. Documentaries avoid this part because it breaks people, but I'm not going to skip it. I mean, this is about Jonestown. You need to know everything. So like I said throughout this video, viewer discretion has been advised. Take it or leave it. Okay. I ain't skipping it. Children growing up in Jonestown. These kids lived in communal dorms. They were away from their parents. They were under constant surveillance. They were punished publicly and tested for loyalty. They were conditioned to obey Jones. And kids are a lot easier to manipulate than adults. These children did not have a childhood. They had programming, and that's it. So when they went to school, it wasn't about, 2 plus 2. It was about indoctrination, and that's it. You were to follow Jim, and that's it. The school was about fear. America wants to you. The outside world is racist and evil. Jim Jones is your only safety. Sounds kind of familiar, you guys, I'm gonna be honest. Cults don't start with adults. They start with children. The children who escaped. Some lived. There was a basketball team for kids. They were gone for a tournament in Georgetown. Thank God. But they became orphans. The errand run kids. And I have mentioned these before, but I'm just reiterating. The kids who ran errands. They heard the screaming, they hid under buildings, or they ran into the jungle. They were barefoot, terrified, running from guards and snakes, as they were getting hunted. One child said, verbatim, the jungle had less teeth than Jonestown. Which is saying a lot. The children who didn't escape. The children who died first. Infants were injected, toddlers were force-fed cyanide, older kids were held down. Some kids screamed, some kids fought, some kids just didn't understand. The parents didn't choose this. They were surrounded by guards at point and were severely sleep deprived. Not a single child in Jonestown made a choice. They were casualties of a collapsing system designed by a man he just believed the world was ending. His world was ending. He created in Guyana. So the surviving children, they came back to no therapy, no support. They were harassed by the media. There's this huge stigma. There's nightmares, addiction, anger, feeling of abandonment. People joke about the Kool-Aid, but they forget about the children. This section closes the hole that everyone decides to avoid. Why? I don't effing know. Jonestown wasn't stupidity. It wasn't blind devotion. It was fear, coercion, isolation, surveillance, psychological control, and a leader that was slowly collapsing over his own delusions. And the lessons? Let's hear them. Anyone who demands absolute loyalty is planning absolute betrayal. Anyone who claims to be the only safe place is building a trap. This is not the version that everybody's heard. This is the version that matches the evidence. The truth isn't pretty, but neither was Jonestown. I have never heard of a lot of the things that I found while researching this topic. Of course, when you think about it, you do forget the children. You think it's just blind adults being idiots, going out into the middle of the jungle with some weirdo. Because, you do hear these cults where they do the mass neutralization together. You hear it all the time. I mean, it's not so common now, but everybody's looking for something other than what we're doing. We're all sick of the rat race. We're all sick of waking up every day and not being able to relax until we're too old to have fun. So I get why people would fall for this. I do, and it's very tragic. But again, I do think that this was a government operation. And why nobody has pinpointed that, why nobody has talked about this guy that he called his mentor, why nobody even talks about there being a facility really close by. The things that I've seen, and we joke about, oh, don't drink the Kool-Aid, don't drink the Kool-Aid. It's not factual. It didn't happen like that. People drank the Kool-Aid, but by force. Let this be a lesson. Don't go to the middle of the jungle with some weirdo. Anyways, enough tragic sadness for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want to do. It's all up to you. Goodbye.